Hare Krishna. Welcome to the reading from the Krishna book. I think we've started a little bit earlier than usual. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we were reading yesterday how Kali and Nag was vanquished by the Lord. He was asked to move away from the Yamuna lake, and how it all began, that how he started to come and disturb the inhabitants of Rajvasis. This was being explained. Kalia took shelter within the water of Yamuna for the following reason. Just as Garuda went to the island of the Kaliya snake, he also used to go to Yamuna to catch fish to eat. There was, however, a great yogi known as Saubhari Muni who used to meditate within the water there and who was sympathetic with the fish. He asked Garuda not to come there and disturb the fish. Although Garuda was not under anyone's order, being the carrier of Lord Vishnu, he did not disobey the order of the great yogi. Instead of staying and eating many fish, he carried off one big fish, who was the leader. Saubhari Muni was sorry that one of the leaders of the fish was taken away by Garuda, and thinking of their protection, he cursed Garuda in the following words. Henceforth from this day, if Garuda comes here to catch fish, then I say this, with all my strength, he will be immediately killed. This curse was known only to Kaliya. Kaliya was therefore confident that Garuda would not be able to come there, and so he thought it wise to take shelter of the lake within the Yamuna. But Kaliya's taking shelter of Saubhari Muni was not successful. He was driven away from the Yamuna by Krishna, the master of Garuda. It may be noted that Garuda is directly related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is so powerful that he is never subject to anyone's orders. Actually, the cursing of Garuda, who is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam to be the stature of the personality of Godhead, Bhagwan, was an offense on the part of Saubhari Muni. Because we have to remember, the carrier of the Lord is also equally important, because he is the part of the Leela of the Bhagwan. Although Garuda did not retaliate, the Muni was not saved from his offensive act against a great Vaishnav personality. So Prabhupada is explaining here that Garuda was equivalent to a Vaishnav personality. Due to this offense, Saubhari Muni fell down from his yogic position and afterwards became a householder, a sense enjoyer in the material world. The fall down of Saubhari Muni, who was supposed to be absorbed in spiritual bliss by meditation, is an instruction to the offender of Vaishnavas. So we have to be careful not to offend the Vaishnavas, the practitioners of Bhakti, Yoga, or the persons who are practicing the Bhakti of the Vishnu. When Krishna finally came out of Kaliya's lake, he was seen by all his friends and relatives on the bank of the Yamuna. He appeared before them nicely decorated, smeared all over with chandan pulp, bedecked with valuable jewels and stones, and almost completely covered with gold. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cowherd boys and men, the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nand and all the cows and calves saw Krishna coming from the Yamuna, and it was as though they had recovered their very life. When a person regains his life, naturally he becomes absorbed in pleasure and joyfulness. They each in turn pressed Krishna to their chests, and thus they felt great relief. Mother Yashoda, Rohini, Maharaj Nanda and the cowherd men became so happy that they embraced Krishna and thought they had achieved their ultimate goal of life. Balram also embraced Krishna, but he was laughing because when everyone else was so overwhelmed with anxiety, he had known that what would happen to Krishna. All the trees on the bank of Yamuna, along with all the cows, bulls and calves, were full of pleasure because of Krishna's appearance there. The Brahmanas, inhabitants of Vrindavan, immediately came with their wives to congratulate Krishna and his family members. And because Brahmanas are considered to be the spiritual masters of the society, they offer their blessings to Krishna and his family on account of Krishna's release. They also asked Maharaj Nanda to give them some charity on that occasion. Because being so pleased by Krishna's return, Maharaj Nanda gave them many cows and much gold in charity. While Nanda Maharaj was thus engaged, Mother Yashoda simply embraced Krishna and made him sit on her lap while she shed tears continuously. Since it was almost night and all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cows and calves, were very tired, they decided to take their rest on the river bank. In the middle of the night, while they were taking rest, there was suddenly a great forest fire, and it quickly appeared that the fire would soon devour all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. As soon as they felt the warmth of the fire, they immediately took shelter of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he was playing just like their child. They began to say, "Our dear Krishna, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, our dear Balram, the reservoir of all the strength, please try to save us from this all-devouring and devastating fire. We have no shelter other than you. This devastating fire will swallow us all." Thus they prayed to Krishna, saying that they could not take any shelter other than his lotus feet. Immediately swallowed up by the whole forest fire and saved them. Lord Krishna, being compassionate upon his own townspeople, immediately swallowed up the whole forest fire and saved them. This was not impossible for Krishna because he is unlimited. He has unlimited power to do anything he desires. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 17th chapter of Krishna, Extinguishing the Forest Fire. Chapter 18, Killing the Demon Pralambasura. After extinguishing the devastating fire, Lord Krishna, surrounded by his relatives, friends, cows, calves and bulls, and glorified by his friends singing, again entered Vrindavan, which is always full of cows. While Krishna and Balram were enjoying life in Vrindavan in the midst of the cowherd boys and girls, the season gradually changed to summer. The summer season in India is not very much welcomed because of the excessive heat. But in Vrindavan, everyone was pleased because summer there appeared just like spring. This was possible only because Lord Krishna and Balram, who are the controllers even of the Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, were residing there. In Vrindavan, there are many falls which are always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that it covers the sound of the crickets. And because water flows all over, the forest always looks very green and beautiful. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were never disturbed by the scorching heat of the sun or the high temperatures. The lakes of the Vrindavans are surrounded by green grasses, and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there, such as the Kahlara, Kanja and Utpala. And the air blowing in Vrindavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of water from the waves of the Yamuna, the lakes and the waterfalls touched the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they automatically felt a cooling effect. Therefore, they were practically undisturbed by the summer season. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and they're dancing, and bees are humming. The cuckoos there sing nicely in 5 kinds of tunes. Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure, blowing his flute, accompanied by his elder brother Balaram and other cowherd boys and cows, entered the beautiful forest of Vrindavan to enjoy the atmosphere. They walked into the midst of newly grown leaves of trees whose flowers resemble peacock feathers. They were garlanded by those flowers and decorated by saffron chalk. Sometimes they were dancing and singing and sometimes wrestling with one another. While Krishna danced, some of the cowherd boys sang and others played on flutes. Some bugled on buffalo horns or clapped their hands, praising Krishna. Dear brother, you are dancing very nicely. Actually, all these boys were demigods descended from higher planets to assist Krishna in his pastimes. So these cowherd boys were no ordinary human beings. The demigods, garbed in the dress of the cowherd boys, were encouraging Krishna in his dancing, just as one artist encourages another with his praise. Up to that time, neither Balaram nor Krishna had undergone the hair-cutting ceremony. Therefore, the hair was clustered like rose feathers. They were always playing hide-and-seek and their boyfriends or jumping or fighting with them. Sometimes with his friends were chatting and dancing, Krishna would praise them. My dear friends, you are dancing and singing very nicely. The boys played blind man's buff, challenging and touching one another. Sometimes they imitated the forest deer and various kinds of birds. They joked with one another by imitating croaking frogs, and they enjoyed swinging underneath the trees. Sometimes they would play like a king and his subjects amongst themselves. In this way, Balaram and Krishna, along with all their friends, played all kinds of sports and enjoyed the soothing atmosphere of Vrindavan, full of rivers, lakes, rivulets, fine trees, and excellent garden filled with fruits and flowers. Once, while the boys were engaged in their transcendental pastimes, a great demon of the name Pralambasura entered their company, desiring to kidnap both Krishna and Balaram. Although Krishna was playing the part of a cowherd boy as the supreme personality of Godhead, he could understand everything, past, present, and future. So when Pralambasura entered their company, Krishna began to think how to kill the demon. But externally he received him as a friend. "Oh, my dear friend," he said, "it is very good that you have come to take part in our pastimes." Krishna then called all his friends and ordered them, "Now we shall play in pairs. We shall challenge one another in pairs." With this proposal, all the boys assembled together. Some of them took the side of Krishna and some of them took the side of Balaram, and they arranged to play in duel. The defeated members in duel fighting had to carry the victorious members on their backs, as a horse carries its masters. They began playing and at the same time tended the cows as they proceeded through the Bandiravan forest. The party of Balaram, accompanied by Sridham and Vrishabh, came out victorious, and Krishna's party had to carry them on their backs through the Bandiravan forest. The supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna, being defeated, had to carry Sridham on his back, and Bhadrasena carried Vrishabh. Imitating their play, Pralambasura, who appeared there as a cowherd boy, carried Balaram on his back. Pralambasura was the greatest of the demons, and he had calculated that Krishna was the most powerful of the cowherd boys. In order to avoid the company of Krishna, Pralambasura carried Balaram far away. The demon was undoubtedly very strong and powerful, but he was carrying Balaram, who is compared to a mountain. Therefore, he began to feel the burden, and thus he assumed the real form. When he appeared in his real feature, he was decorated with a golden helmet and earrings and looked just like a cloud with lightning carrying the moon. Balaram observed the demon's body expanding up to the limits of the clouds, his eyes dazzling like blazing fire and his mouth flashing with sharpened teeth. At first, Balaram was surprised by the demon's appearance, and then he began to wonder, how is it that all of a sudden this carrier has changed in every way? But with a clear mind, he would quickly understand that he was being carried away from his friends by a demon who intended to kill him. Immediately, he struck the head of the demon with his strong fist, just as the king of the heavenly planets strikes a mountain with his thunderbolt. Being stricken by the fist of Balaram, the demon fell down dead, just like a snake with a smashed head, and blood poured from his mouth. When the demon fell, he made a tremendous sound, and it sounded as if a great hill were falling upon, being struck by the thunderbolt of King Indra. All the boys then rushed to the spot, astonished by the ghastly scene. They began to praise Balaram with the words, "Well done, well done." All of them then embraced Balaram with great affection, thinking that he had returned from death, and they offered their blessings and congratulations. All the demigods in the heavenly planets became very satisfied and showered flowers on the transcendental body of Balaram, and they also offered their blessings and congratulations for his having killed the great demon Pralambasura. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 18th chapter of Krishna, killing the demon Pralambasura. So here we see Lord Balaram has killed the demon Pralambasura, one of the most powerful demons who had come to kidnap both Krishna and Balaram. And the forest fire has been quietened as well, and we shall read about it in the next chapter, chapter 19 on Monday, devouring the forest fire. So let us endeavor to keep Krishna in the middle of our all life activities and pray that Krishna showers his mercy upon us so that we can have the taste of hearing, chanting and remembering him while living our day-to-day mundane lives. I wish you all a very blissful weekend, and I am hoping to start speaking on Krishna for a small duration of time on Saturdays. It will be same time, so it will be kind of interactive session. So if you have any questions at that time regarding what we'll be speaking upon, you can ask any questions, or if you want to ask, you can ask later on as well. So tomorrow we shall be speaking on Tulsi Maharani to begin with, and our reading from the Krishna book will resume as usual on Monday, which is Monday to Friday. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.